Hey everybody, welcome back for another video. My name is Tanya, for those of you that are new here, and I'm a watercolor artist. So fall is right around the corner and I am seeing pumpkins at all the stores. So I was inspired to paint one for you. So I wanted to paint an orange, a white, and a green. So I hope you enjoy the video.
Okay, so to get started, I have my Arches watercolor paper. I have my water. I have different size paintbrushes here of my Grumbacher. I'll let you know what size I'm using as I'm going along. I've got my paper towel, my pencil, my eraser, and my Winsor Newton watercolors. I just chose several colors here that we're going to be using today, and I'll let you know what color I'm using as I'm going along. All right, so we're going to be just lightly sketching out our pumpkins. I'm going to be doing a couple different pumpkins today just to show you like a white one, a green one, an orange one. So I'm just going to do a couple different varieties of different pumpkins for you. All right, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lightly sketch out your pumpkin. And I usually start almost in this outline form here of like a heart, and then it kind of goes in down here. And you can keep just being really sketchy about this. You're just going to erase the lines that you're not going to use, that you're not going to follow with. So just be really sketchy about it. And then I come in with the center right here, like this. And then I bring him down. So it's like an oval. It's like a nice little oval. So then you've got the three little shapes here. And you can make more shapes if you want to. And then just bring that down also. They're just like little C curves. And then don't forget the little humps in the back, because even though we're only seeing this part of the pumpkin, it still has all those little humps in the back. So you're gonna wanna see one or two of those also. And then don't forget your little stem. All right, and then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna erase the lines that I am not gonna follow with. And you can even lighten up some of your lines right now if you want to. I'm not going to lighten up my lines just because I want you to be able to see them on camera. But normally I would lighten up my lines a lot. All right. So that'll be our first pumpkin. And then let's do another one over here. Let's maybe make him a little bit taller. Actually, you know what? I want him peeking out from behind this pumpkin. So you always want to even think about your composition. So like, let's say I was going to actually really frame this one. I would just start thinking about my composition. So I want him peeking out from the back here. Okay, so it's like a little heart, and then round it off at the bottom. You're going to come in with your little oval here in the center. Okay, and then you could do a couple other little curves if you want. Then don't forget the back again. And then the little stem. Like that. All right, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to erase the lines that I'm not going to use, that I'm not going to follow along with. Okay. All right, so those are going to be the first two. I'm going to get my pumpkins damp with my size 5. Let me bring my water a little closer. All right, so we're gonna start with the middle here of this first pumpkin. And let's do more of like an orangey, just like a normal orangey pumpkin. So I'm gonna bring in, I've got my CAD red pale here. I'm gonna make a nice little wash of it on my palette. All right, and I'm gonna bring in a little bit of my yellow ochre also over here. And I've got my orange mixed in with it. I didn't clean off my brush. That's okay, because I'm going to be blending the colors anyways on my paper here. You're going to want to follow along with the little section that you just got wet. Now in perspective, most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, what's closest to you is a little lighter. So this part of the pumpkin is the closest part of the pumpkin to me. So you're gonna leave this the lightest. So what I did was I just went around the edge here of that oval that we had made, and I'm gonna let it slowly bleed into the middle. If you want, you can also bring in just a little bit of yellow like that, just to lighten it up a little bit also and just help it along. So see how that is it's giving it dimension already. So it's a little bit darker on the side of the oval, a little bit lighter in the middle here. We're gonna go ahead and do pretty much the same thing to all of these. So I'm gonna work on this one over here, let that dry a little bit. I'm gonna get this nice and wet. And I'm gonna bring in my orange over here. Now this one's a little bit more of a straight orange. I didn't add any of the yellow to it. You want a little variety in your pumpkins here. So if you just make them all the same color, your pumpkin's gonna look a little bit flatter. You want to give it a little bit of dimension. So have them all be a little bit of a different shade, but then at the end, you're gonna bring them all in together to kind of just mesh together a little bit, if that makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. All right, so see how I just did mostly on the outside? And I'm gonna let it bleed more towards the middle here. Now there is this crease here in the pumpkin, so that is gonna be a little bit, you could shade that a little bit. So I'm gonna bring in a little bit of my light red here. It's almost like a brownish red. See that? It's a red, but it's like got a lot of browns in there. And it's a little bit darker than the other red we were using. So I'm gonna bring that in. And it's okay if this is still wet, you're gonna let them bleed into each other like that. And then I'm gonna bring it on this side also, because I'm gonna start this little section here in a minute anyways. Okay. Bring in a little bit of our orange. And then don't forget those little humps in the back also. Your stem is in front of them, so you're not gonna cover your stem, but you do have a couple of those little humps in the back here, like that. All right, we're gonna let that dry. Actually, you know what? I'd like to bring in a little bit of that yellow ochre even down here too. Just a little bit. See how it's giving our pumpkin dimension already just by adding different shades of yellows and oranges? All right, so you're gonna wanna let that dry, and then we can come in and we're gonna do another layer. Now this pumpkin, I'm gonna do more of a green pumpkin. So I've got a couple different shades of green here. I've got my sap green, and I've got my, this one is Daniel Smith, but it's my Viridian. So it doesn't matter if you have Daniel Smith or not, it's the Viridian color that I'm using. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the center part of my pumpkin nice and damp here too. And I'm gonna make just a little wash of my sap green right there. Okay. And I'm gonna come in again on the sides of that oval and let it bleed in. You can put as much as you want. And you don't have to use the exact same greens that I'm using or even oranges. Just use whatever you have. It doesn't matter. I'm just kind of showing you a sample of it. All right. And you know what I want to do? I want to add a little bit of my yellow ochre to the middle here too. Because sometimes these pumpkins, even the green ones, have a little bit of an undertone of like some yellows in there. And actually when you do the yellow and the green together, it makes a lime color, which is really, really pretty. All right, so I'm gonna go on to this part of my pumpkin. Now I'm not waiting till this pumpkin is dry. Maybe if you are gonna be doing this, wait till your pumpkin's dry, otherwise you're gonna have green in here. I'm gonna try and just carefully go around that pumpkin. Because if it is still wet, they will bleed together, especially since these two pumpkins are touching on my painting. But I'm gonna try to carefully just go around that. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of the Viridian in there also, just to give it a little bit of some extra green, a darker green for the little parts of the pumpkin in the back, just to push those back a little bit. Add my sap green. I'm gonna get it a little bit deeper here so I didn't mix as much water with that one. See, if you don't mix as much water, your color is a little bit more vibrant because the water dilutes it a little bit, makes it lighter. I'm gonna add a little sap green over here too. It's okay if these blend together. But if you don't want them to blend together, then go ahead and dry it. I'm gonna add a little bit of my yellow ochre over here too. Blend that in, maybe a little more yellow ochre here. I'm gonna add a little bit of that Viridian over here. Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and dry these and then we're gonna give it another layer. Okay, so this one is nice and dry. This one's still a little bit damp. And so we're just gonna start with the orange one again. All right, so we're still using the same colors. I'm just gonna start deepening up my tones here. So I started with the little part of the pumpkin in the back with the darker, that light red that we were using, the one that was a little bit more brown. I'm gonna switch over to my pale orange, pale red here. And again, I'm just kind of doing what I did before with the darker is on like the creases where the pumpkin comes together. I'm making that a little bit darker. I'll add a little bit of that darker orange in here. Blend that in. So I'm leaving the middle part of that pumpkin nice and light. I'm gonna go ahead and deepen up this one. Now this one I didn't use as much water. See how much darker that is? I didn't put that much water on my brush. And now I'm gonna just take some water and I'm gonna blend it in like that. And do the same thing to this side. I wanted it a little bit deeper than that. Now, if you want a nice, delicate, light painting, you might not want to add as many layers as I am. I tend to make my paintings a little bit more vibrant. So I usually add a lot more paint. And then this one, I'm going to do the cad. See how this one's a little bit more vibrant? I'm going to add a little bit of that in here too. And then as these dry, it's going to be really, really pretty. Add a little bit of that over here. So see how you're using different colors, but you're bringing the pumpkin together, because then you're using a little bit of the colors everywhere. And I'm going to darken up down here a little bit. More towards the bottom. Now we're going to come in with another layer anyways and start deepening it up even more. We're going to let that dry now. All right, let's go back to our green one. It's still a little damp, but not that bad. All right. So I want to go around my edges again using the sap green. So I'm starting with that center oval, doing the edges. Gonna let it bleed more towards the middle. I'm gonna bring in a little bit of that yellow ochre again. Just deepen it up like that. Just add a little water, blend it in. All right, I'm going to start adding a little bit of that Viridian color again, just here and there, just tapping it in. tapping it in maybe up towards the top and more towards the bottom, just because where the stem is, and then the bottom is always a little darker, where the stem is a little darker, just because they're all coming together, so it's shaded a little bit. It's got a little bit of a shadow in there, however the light is hitting it. And plus it just starts to round out your pumpkin a little bit. When you start shading it, it just rounds out your subject. So you can start bringing some of those down a little bit if you want. Now my pumpkin is still nice and wet, so it's blending in together beautifully. If it wasn't blending in together, I would be adding a little bit of water like that and just helping it along. All right, I think I want to add a little bit more of that yellow ochre right in here, just to punch that out just a little bit. Really, really pretty. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dry these once again, and we're gonna add a third layer. All right, so they're still a little damp, but not that bad. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, and I've got my burnt umber here, which is a darker brown. I'm gonna start using that just to deepen up the shadows a little bit more. So I'm gonna make a little bit of a wash of that, like this. And I'm gonna start bringing it in more towards the top where the stem is and the bottom, just to deepen up those areas a little bit. It's gonna round out your pumpkin and give it a little bit more dimension. So right now it's almost outlining it, but I'm gonna take some clean water and I'm gonna blend that in. Blend it up the pumpkin. Just add some clean water. Okay, so we did the bottom of the pumpkin. Now let's go ahead and do the top, where the stem is. You're just gonna shade that in a little bit. And if you wanted to, we could even bring in a little bit of a Payne's gray or a black if you wanted to deepen it up even more. I think it looks really cute just like that, but I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. All right. Got my Payne's gray. I'm gonna make a little wash on my palette here. Okay. I'm just gonna dab it where I just added that brown umber, that burnt umber. I'm just gonna deepen up those sections a little bit more. Okay. We're gonna let that dry. And actually, I just wanna bring this up a little bit, blend it in a little more here. All right. And we're gonna deepen up our green. I'm gonna take my Viridian again. And I'm just gonna deepen up the top and the bottom of my pumpkin. There. All right, so we're gonna let those dry, and then we're gonna go ahead and do the stems. All right, so I'm gonna move over to my size 0 paintbrush, and I'm gonna take my burnt umber. You can make a wash it if you want. I'm just gonna go straight onto my paper here. I'm gonna kind of outline my stem. Deepen it up a little bit, especially at the top here where we were making all those little creases. You can follow along with some of those creases. And I'm going to just bring up some little lines. I still want a little of that white showing through, just so it's a little highlight. Like that. Bring it down. And then when we give it another layer, you can go ahead and cover up some of those highlights if you don't want that many highlights. We're gonna do the same thing to this stem. Then you could take just clean water and bleed down those little lines you had just made on your pumpkin, like that. Okay. All right. And I think I just want to deepen up down here just a little bit more with my Payne's Gray, because if you've watched my videos, you know I can't leave things alone. I always need them to pop a little bit more. Painting just doesn't look finished to me unless things are popping like way off your page. I don't know. It's just me. A lot of people like just, you know, delicate little watercolor paintings. I tend to make mine a little bit more vibrant, and I push my shadows. I love to just push my shadows. I'm gonna add some of that dark right in here too. Coming down like that. To me, that looks awesome, but you may not like it. So if you don't like this step, don't do it. You can bring it up a little bit into your stem. See, I just love the look of that. It just looks more plump and 3D, and I just like that look a little bit better. All right, so let's go ahead and put a little bit more brown in our stem here. Okay, blend that in. All right, so I'm gonna move back over to my size 5, and I'm just gonna make a little bit of a Payne's Gray wash, just so these pumpkins don't look like they're floating in air. I'm just gonna give it like a little bit of a tabletop right there. It could be a little bit darker under your pumpkins because that's where the shadow is. Just make sure that your horizon line of the table is even, otherwise it'll look really weird. And then you could just kind of blend that off, leave that off your page. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dry this and see if I need to add anything else. All right, so I'm gonna deepen up my table a little bit more, and I'm just gonna push that a little bit deeper, especially under my pumpkin here. All right, what I do want to do is add a little bit more of my green. I lost a little bit of my definition in here as it dried. So I'm going to punch that out just a little more. There. That's really cute. All right, so I think we're gonna let these dry, and I'm gonna go over, and I wanted to show you really quickly the white pumpkin, because white is a little tricky, especially on white paper. So we're gonna just go ahead. I'm gonna make just a pumpkin right here in the middle. Again, with my little heart shape, kind of round it off. The oval in the middle. And then you can make some others if you want. And then don't forget about those little humps in the back and your little stem. Okay, so it looks like that. Go ahead, take your eraser, erase the lines you don't want. All right, so now with white on white, it's a little bit different. So you're gonna want an undertone. So I'm gonna use Payne's Gray, just the wash of Payne's Gray that I had made before. If you wanna use a blue or a brown, whatever, I might even pull in some browns in here. You could even do a light orange. So you'd always want something there so it's like the shadow. So we're gonna start again with that oval in the front, and I've just got my light wash of my Payne's Gray. You want this to be a white pumpkin, so you don't wanna overwhelm it. You just wanna give it some shadow. Okay, so I'm leaving the white part of my paper nice and white right there. I'm just going over where all those little curves are in the pumpkin. Blend that in. Do this one. Now this one, your pencil lines might be showing up a little bit more because you're leaving your pumpkin nice and light. If you wanted to go ahead and erase your pencil lines before we started painting, definitely do it. I left mine so I could show you. And go up where all those little curves are, where the pumpkin meets together, the round part. Blend it out. Do all your sides. Blend it out with just some water. Don't forget those little humps in the back. Okay. And I think I will add a little bit of my burnt umber in here just to give it a little bit of like a brownish tone. I don't want a white and gray pumpkin, so I am going to put a little bit of that brown in here towards the bottom and then towards the top where we darkened even the other pumpkins. So where the stem is and then the bottom. And you can always speckle in a little bit of brown. These pumpkins, the white ones, have beautiful specks on them once in a while, so we might do a little bit of a splattering at the end. But see how I'm trying to leave that as a white pumpkin? Another thing that's going to help you is by painting in some background. It'll push down the white paper and pop your pumpkin a little bit if you start painting the background a little bit. So we're going to do that in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and dry this first. Okay, so he is pretty dry. We're going to go ahead and put in the stem really quick with the burnt umber. Oop, I got a little too much on my brush there. Leave some white space again for some highlights. You can bring down some of that brown. Blend in a little bit of water just to give it a wash there so it blends in nicely. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and deepen up our bottom here. I'm gonna go back to my size 5 just because this is a little bit of a bigger pumpkin. And I'm gonna deepen that up a little bit more with my Payne's Gray. Blend it in a little bit. Blend it up the pumpkin, up those little ridges. Okay, so right now you're giving it some depth like that. Gonna add some Payne's Gray up here too, pouncing it in. Put a little bit of that Payne's Gray in my stem also. You can bring it up a little bit. And then you can bring down those shadows. Don't forget about those little humps in the back. They're easy to forget about. Oop, I had a little too much water on my brush, so I'm gonna pick some of that up. Blend that in a little bit. All right. I'm gonna go back to my small brush and I'm gonna pick up some of my brown and just deepen up that stem a little bit more. There, just like that. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that. I lost some of my highlight down here, so I'm gonna pick up some of that paint and just dabbing it off on my paper towel. There, I'm picking up that highlighted side of my stem. So I was just picking up the paint and dabbing it off on my paper towel. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dry this again because we're gonna do a little bit of a background on this one. So I'm gonna pick up my Payne's Gray, the wash that I had made. I'm gonna do the same thing to this pumpkin, just underneath it, so it doesn't look like it's floating in air. You want it to be like sitting on something. Make sure your table line matches the table line on this side, as close as you can. Blend it in with some water. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of a deeper tone of the Payne's Gray down here because I want a deeper shadow under the pumpkin. Let that bleed in a little bit. All right. Now, if you want, you can take more of a wash brush. I've got my 1/2 inch flat brush here. And I'm gonna take, let's go ahead and make the background more of a yellow. So I'm gonna take my yellow ochre. I'm just gonna do a wash of my yellow ochre right here. Just a light wash. I don't really want a ton of a background, like a bright background. I just want a little something, just so you know that there's a little something back there. And plus it's gonna pop that pumpkin right off your page. The more you do a background, the more it's gonna pop that pumpkin and make it look a little bit whiter. And it's okay if my background and my table mix together, I don't mind. But if you do, then just go ahead and dry it. All right, so that is those pumpkins, and I could sit here and play with this all day. I could keep adding layers to it, which I might after this video is done, because they don't look completely done to me. So I might add some more shadows and stuff just to, actually, you know what? I do want to add a little bit more. I just can't leave things alone, but I do want to add a little bit more down here. I'm sure I'll be playing with these even after the video is done, but I just like to add my shadows like that. Bring it down, bring it up. There, to me that looks a little bit more done now. And this one I could bring up a little bit more. For some reason I'm losing it in this little corner here, so I think after the video is done I'm going to just keep playing with that little corner there because it just doesn't look done to me. If you didn't leave enough white highlights and you wanted to, I've got this Dr. Martin, PH Martin's Bleed Proof White. You can always add a little bit of this if you want a little highlight more in your stem or whatever. So I'm not going to do that to these paintings, but I'm just letting you know you could use this also. So there, it's just a couple little samples of some generic little pumpkins. Like I said, I'm probably going to keep playing with these once the video's done and just deepen them up even a little bit more. But I just wanted to show you how to do an orange, green, and white pumpkin.
Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it and learned a little something. And if you did like it, please give me a thumbs up and you can make a comment in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos like this one. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. Bye.